I'm Burniston, the designer of Pop-It-Ups dies for Elizabeth Craft Designs, and today I'll be teaching a tutorial on this. A pop-up fireplace card with Santa's boots dangling in the opening. This is my card for the December 2016 Designer Challenge. Our theme this month is Home for the Holidays. So a great technique for when you want to do a floor and a wall and have them be different colors is to take your pattern paper, keep an extra 1/2 inch flap on the floor panel, and then just put your wall panel face down against the floor, fold that flap over and press it onto the back of the wall panel. Then what you'll end up with is a two-toned card where you have a different color on the floor than you do on the wall. So my finished interior card is 5 1/4 wide by 9 1/4 long once I put both those pieces together. I'm going to use the Lots of Pops die just for a couple of the platforms. This is a great little all-purpose die. All you do is line up the alignment nubs right over the fold of the card. I'm using some temporary adhesive to hold it into place. You can use any die cutting machine that will accommodate a wafer-thin die. Today I'm using a Sizzix Big Shot. For today's card, I'm only going to use the 2 outside platforms. So in the closed position, with the card closed, I'm going to find that platform where the score lines are and fold that over to pinch the crease and work it. Then it goes right back up to the center again. You open the card and pop those to come inside the card. And they will become just these simple little box platforms. I've cut a 2" by 6" strip of gray cardstock to be my fireplace insert and boots support. I'll need to make a series of scores. Starting from the left, I'm going to score at 1 inch, 2½ inch, and 3 1/4. Then I need to go another additional 1½ inch off of that 3 1/4, which should bring me to 4 3/4, and then I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. I need to start my fold with a valley, then another valley, and then a series of 3 mountain folds. So it's mountain, mountain, mountain. And that will create that little fireplace insert and boots support. I'm going to flip this piece over so that I can add some adhesive to the underside of it where it's going to attach to the floor and to the wall of the card. And what I'll use is the Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive. It doesn't really matter the width. I happen to have the 10mm. That works well for this. And I just want a couple strips of tape in those first 2 panels for the floor and the wall. The next panel, the third panel, gets no adhesive. That is the boot support. And then the final 3 panels are going to get their adhesive on the front of the piece. So once again, I'll just go back to my 10mm double-sided adhesive tape, add a couple strips in all 3 of those panels. Completely optional, but I did think a little blending tool with some black ink might be nice inside the fireplace just to add a little bit of soot. I'll use the larger hole punch on the crocodile that I think is about 3/16 of an inch in diameter, and I'll use that to punch a couple holes in that one panel that has no adhesive. If you'd like to do a Western themed card, you could definitely just keep these as cowboy boots. I'd like them to look more like a traditional Santa boot. So all that means is I need to take my scissors and just kind of round off and remove the little tips of the boots. And then I'll just do the same thing to the other boot. Just round off and remove that little tip at the end of the cowboy boot. Okay, now to make some cuffs for Santa's boots, I'm going to use this banner die that comes with the Lots of Pops die. I'll fold that in the middle, and then I'll just decide how tall I want my cuff and cut right through both layers. And that will make 2 cuffs, one for the front of the boot and one for the back of the boot. That way, if they spin around in the opening, when the card is open and closed, it'll look good on both sides. Now to make the boots hang, you need to do another little modification. This is not anything that needs to be measured. Basically, you just want to take a little notch out near the top of the boot on both sides. And what you're doing is leaving a little piece in the middle that is, I don't know, it just has to fit through that hole, right? So about that much. Really, there's very little to this. If you want to, you can trim off a little bit of the sides. That'll make it a little easier to fold those in. But what you want to do is you want to fold in the wings at the top of the boot. That will allow you to put that through the hole and then unfold it so that they will be trapped and hang there. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm just taking my scissors. I'm just eyeing it. It's not something I'm measuring. I'm just basically notching out a little notch on both sides of the boot, leaving myself a little river in the middle that can fit through that hole that I punched earlier. I can make the top a little bit skinnier That makes it easier for me to fold in the little wings that allow that peg now to go right through that hole that I punched earlier. To add the cuffs, I'll just use liquid glue, and I'll add one cuff to the front of the boot, then I'll flip them over and add the other cuff on the back of the boot. So now I have a pair of boots that looks great on the front, looks great on the back, so there is no front and back anymore. They'll go any way that they end up. And all I have to do to get those installed into the fireplace support, I've already folded in the wings, so they should fit right through those little holes. Just get the pegs through the holes, turn the whole piece over, and unfold the little wings on the back of the piece. And that will lock those into place where they can just wiggle and jiggle when the card opens. They can flip around, turn the other way. He can be pointed in to the left, he can be pointed to the right, he can even have his toes pointed towards each other. It's just a really cute look. So now I'm going to get this fireplace support installed inside my card, and I'll need to peel up the liner on the back of the piece. So those are the two pieces that attach to the floor of the card and to the back wall of the card. And that's where I want to put it. So I want to get it right between my little lots of pop supports, make sure the fold is directly in the fold of the card and that everything is straight. Press down the floor piece. Then probably the easiest on the wall is just to take care with the boots so that they're not getting bent. Make sure that they're laying flat. Fold the whole piece flat and then press the card to the exposed adhesive to attach it. Okay, now I have the floor piece in and the wall piece in. This one's going to bend all the way around and become a little box. Now that's not something that I would want to eye. I want to attach that piece, but I want to do it in the closed position. So I'm folding it next to the panel that still has tape on it. So see where I've folded it? Then I'm going to carefully close the whole card closed. I should see one panel of tape and one sticky panel, and then give it a good press. Now don't panic that as you open the card, that box doesn't come forward. It's not supported yet by the fireplace. The fireplace is what's going to pull that box open. But it is installed correctly. You can see how it's going to eventually work. And what I'll need for additional fireplace support is my two little Lots of Pops platforms. And right now I'll go ahead and get my double-sided adhesive tape put on those platforms. My fireplace will be built on a 3x5 inch piece of gray cardstock that is completely covered on one side with the double-sided adhesive. And all I need to do is cut out the opening that's going to correspond to the opening of the fireplace. The gray side is the back side of the piece. I could certainly do this all with a ruler and a pencil and mark my opening. I think it's just easy to do with a trimmer. I've put the edge of my long side at 1.5 inches, figured out kind of where the center is of that piece, and just got a little line started with my trimmer blade. Then I'll do the side pieces to come up to that line and try not to cross that line. So once again, 1.5 inches from the end. Then I'm just going to take my trimmer blade from the bottom, come up to, and try not to pass that horizontal line. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, put it in at 1.5 inches. This time I'm coming from the top because I'm trying to complete that little box cutout. And now I've got my 3 lines. So they're roughed in, and all I have to do is complete them by using scissors. So now I have that opening cut out of my fireplace. It's 2 inches wide, it's 1.5 inches tall, it's in the center. I need some bricks, so I'm going to cut those from some 1/4 inch strips of red cardstock. So those are 3 different reds. They're very similar, but not exactly the same. That gives me a little variation in the brick. The other variation is going to come from the fact that I'm just eyeing them and cutting the length of them, and I'm not making sure that it's always the same. I actually want a little variation in the size of the bricks as well. So I'm peeling up the liner on the tape, flipping it around to cover a little bit of the top of my fireplace. That's basically just so my hand doesn't stick in it while I'm doing this brickwork. And I'm going to start my bricks right at the top of the opening because I'd like to have a nice solid line of bricks that go right across the top of the opening of the fireplace, so I don't have to try and get in there with my scissors or a craft knife and cut off a half brick along that line. So that's probably the most important line for me. The rest of them can hang off the edges in all the other directions because I can easily trim them. You can see that I'm just letting them hang off the edges. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not making sure that they're perfectly straight. Some of them have different widths. Some of them are different colors. That's what makes it look authentic. So just go in there, have fun with it. Just throw those little rectangles in. The tweezers can be really helpful for this. And you don't need to do the very final line of bricks across the top. I'd actually like to use that adhesive instead to hold the front part of my mantle. Let's talk about this brown cardstock mantle. What it is it's the piece that's going to fold over the top. So the front section is going to be attached to the fireplace. I cut that piece of brown cardstock to 5¼ by 1¼ inch, and I've scored it at 1/2 inch. So the piece that I'm attaching now to the front of my fireplace is the 1/2 inch piece, leaving me 3/4 for the top. And I sure wish I would have cut off one of those bricks before I put that on there. Now I've got to get in there with my scissors and trim those off. So since you haven't started your card yet, I'm going to suggest that you trim those bricks before you add your mantle. The rest of the bricks are easy enough to trim away with a pair of scissors. Do it from the back of the piece. It'll be easier to do it that way. And then what I want to do is I want to grout this. So I'm going to use the Pewter Silk Microfine Glitter, and I'm just going to pour that down into all that exposed adhesive in the grout lines and tap off the excess. Polish it as well as I can, but it will be hard to get between the bricks to really do very much polishing. Now, as far as adding the fireplace onto the supports, I like to do them from the bottom up. And I'm going to start with the 2 supports that will be on either side of the opening. And I'll get those first. That way I don't have to worry about any additional exposed adhesive. I can kind of push the box out of the way and just focus on getting my fireplace in there straight, lined up with those 2 supports and attached to the front of them. I had pushed the box down to get it out of the way, and I'm actually going to leave it right there for adhering. I'm going to peel up the liner, the 2 pieces of tape that are on that fat section of the box, and I'm going to leave that in the closed, collapsed position, and I'm going to carefully close the card, which will bring the fireplace up and over that box, and the top edge of the opening will line right up with the first fold in the box. It will line up absolutely perfectly, and just give it a good press. And there you have it. Almost done. All I need to do is peel up the liner now at the top of my support, the top of the box that's going to support the top of the mantle. Just get the adhesive exposed and then just fold over the top of the mantle and press it down into that exposed adhesive. Once all the parts are attached, I should be able to carefully close the card, give everything a good squish in the closed position. When I go to add this card inside a backing card, I'm going to add a magnet into the adhesive on the back wall before I put it in the backing card. Now, those are magnets that I get from K&J Magnetics. I know Basic Gray also sells them. You're basically looking for the super thin, strong kind. So those are, I think, neodymium. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I stacked 2 of mine together because they're so tiny. I just wanted them to be a little bit stronger. And then I'm going to trap those in place by using some tape over the top. What I did for my backing card is I used the gray cardstock. I cut the width to 5½, so that's going to be a little bit wider than my card. And I just used the entire 12-inch long strip so that I would have some extra at the bottom to make my fold over closure. And then I scored it at 4 3/4 from the top. And that will give me just a little slight edge of gray around my back wall when I get that into place. And then attaching the floor is just a matter of peeling up the liner on all of the tape and then carefully closing the card against the exposed adhesive. All this extra gray cardstock can be used to make the other half of the closure. So in the closed position, I'm going to score that cardstock right next to the closed card, then an extra 1/8 inch, then another 1/8 inch. So I'm just rolling 3 close together folds that can be used to kind of expand that end so that it will be able to accommodate the thickness of the card. Okay, I'm going to let a magnet stick to the ones that are hidden inside the card, and then I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive tape out on the end of my flap, just 2 rows of it, and I'm hoping that I hit that one piece, the inside piece, in the right position to pick up the magnet. Looks like it's going to work. Okay, that means I just need to peel up the liner on the tape. I'm not trying to stick my card closed. I'm just trying to pick up the magnet. So I just got to press where the magnet is until it transfers to the tape. I'm going to use my scoring board as a little ruler here to figure out about how much of that flap is sticky. And it looks to me like it's about 1.5 inches. So if I score about 3/4 inch from the end of the card, that will give me a fold over flap that will be large enough to cover up my magnet and all of the sticky tape that's on the end of that card. So just give it a good press. Now I'm going to have that nice polished folded edge to use for my flap. Okay, I've probably been watching a little bit too much HGTV, but I thought it would be fun to tile my hearth. So I've done squares of metallic brown cardstock sunk down into a piece of that same gray cardstock that has a double-sided adhesive on it, cut off all the excess, grout it with my pewter glitter, and now I've got that pretty tiled hearth for in front of my fireplace. Very similar to the modification for Santa's boots, you can also use the cowboy boots to make stockings. In this case, all you want to do is trim off the heel and then still round the toe. And then just to make it look even more like a stocking, if you take a little bit off of the front of the boot and make it a little bit more straight, now that stocking will be hanging at more of an angle. And then once again, just a little bit of glue at the top, make the same kind of cuffs using that little fold over banner die from the Lots of Pops that can go up near the top, trim off the excess boot, and maybe just kind of nip the corners of the cuff so that it's a little bit less severe. The 2 star dies that come with Prop 6 can be used to make a fun star garland. All I've done is I've cut the big star out of silver shimmer sheets and the smaller star out of red with double-sided adhesive on the back. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel that up and just trap a piece of gold thread in between the 2 stars as I press them together. For a greeting, I turned to the perfect calligraphy word die from the Suzanne Cannon Quiet Fire Designs collection with Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I am going to use naturally the word believe. All the other decorations are completely up to you. Let me tell you what I did. For the front of the card, I used some washi tape that had Merry Christmas already printed on it, and then repeated the same pattern papers from inside the card. I did another little brick feature to make the chimney and put the Props 5 Santa hat coming out of the chimney. Inside my card, I added 4 stockings to the mantle, and then I used my star garland, letting some of the stars hang off of the ends. There's a candle die in the Els Vandenberg Studio line that I wanted to use the greenery and the flame and the berries from, but for the candle itself, I just trimmed off the bottom part of the pole that comes with the Lots of Pops and cut that out of shimmer sheets. There's a wreath from Rudy the Reindeer on the back wall with a shimmer sheets mirror, and then I used a little box platform to animate the candle itself so that it can be out in the middle of the mantle. I like to fold this card by folding up from the bottom. That just keeps the boots hanging in the right position while I close it. I bet you have some really fun ideas for other ways that you could decorate the fireplace inside this card. Maybe add a Christmas tree. How about a plate of cookies for Santa, a little glass of milk? Oh, it would be so adorable. If you would like to know more about these dies, you can go to elizabethcraftdesigns.com or check with your local independent craft retailer. You can like my Facebook page, Karen Burniston Designer, where you will be treated to daily inspiration, and you'll always find more ideas on my blog, karenburniston.com. Thanks for watching.